Welcome to the Rich Flow of Life podcast. Join Valerie Kanay, the award-winning authority author, as she takes you on a journey for your personal evolution. Valerie Kanay talks to enlightened featured guests who hold the keys to unlock your unique life situation. They each bring to the table their very powerful personal spin to inspire and empower you to learn to step up your game into the rich flow of life.
Well, hello everybody. I'm Valerie Kanay, and today our featured guest is Paul McKinley, who I'm so proud, pleased, and honored to have joining us. Paul is the author of the new book, Rules of the Spirit, and it's about integrating spiritual truths into daily living. He's a bachelor's of science in mechanical engineering and has worked more than 15 years in the computer industry, and he has numerous other fabulous careers along the way. But the one I want to highlight today and pinpoint and just say something about, because I did find it very intriguing, is that he's an instrument-rated pilot and developed an airport community east of Georgetown, Texas. Wow, how incredible is that? Also, he served as a Methodist lay speaker and speaks regularly at churches. He's published several magazines, publications, and has won awards for many of those. He's also a level 2 Reiki healer, and he's even developed an energy healing technique of his own. So we may hear something about that. I hope so. And Paul is the husband. He's married to Anne, and he's the father of his son, Jesse, who's having some real great feats of his own right now. Maybe he'll share just a bit about that on the family side. But today we are going to feature and highlight his book, The Rules of the Spirit, for he tells me that evolved from we are in this world and not of this world. So on that note, Paul, welcome to our program.
Hi, Valerie. I'm so grateful to be here.
We're so delighted to have you. So you have so many fascinating things about you, and I'm just taken back about some of the things that I've read about you in your bio. So I do want to start out about your book, since that's the whole thing that we're really going to feature here today. So just tell me a bit about your book.
Okay. I think I'll start off with how the book kind of got started. A number of years ago, I became intrigued with the phrase that should be pretty recognizable by most people of the Christian tradition, which is, we are in the world, not of the world. And I got to thinking about, well, if we're in the world but not of the world, then where are we of? And of course, the mindset or the concept is that, well, we're of spirit, naturally. So what does it mean to be of the spirit living in the world? And I kind of got to thinking about those things. And okay, well, what are the characteristics of spirit, and what are the offsetting characteristics of the world? And I came up with this paradigm, which is that the rules of the Spirit are based on love, grace, and trust. The rules of the world are kind of the opposites of that. So now you might get a different answer from different people on that, but the opposite of love is fear, at least according to my paradigm. And also what falls out of those, out of the fear as well, is control and power. So the rules of the Spirit is love, grace, and trust. The rules of the world is, I usually put it in the order of control, power, fear. Any of the things that you see going on in life that are control, power, fear based, those are worldly based. Now the interesting thing is that what I have observed is that the rules of the Spirit always work. The rules of the world only appear to work. I'll give you a really good example of that, and that is, of course, the world believes that you can get people to do things by putting someone into fear. In other words, you can intimidate someone into doing things.
Like what would be an example, Paul?
Well, so if I, threaten you with something that you do this or I'm going to do that to you, then that brings the fear out in you. And so you are oftentimes going to jump to and do whatever it is that I'm asking you to do, or intimidating you into doing.
Based out of fear, because you don't want the punishment.
Right. It's based in fear, but that only works sometimes. And we've all heard of so many times where in a battlefield situation, a soldier will, throw himself on a grenade in order to save his comrades. So clearly love is the truth of it. You can always, well, I don't know that you need to get someone to do things for you through love, but the fact is that people will do things for love, and the sometimes the fear works and sometimes it doesn't. So, fear is not really the truth. Sometimes you can get people to do things like that, but it doesn't work all the time. And love definitely works all the time. So that's kind of the idea behind these rules, is that the rules of the spirit work every time. It always works. The rules of the world only appear to work, and sometimes they don't work. And so they're really not based in the spiritual reality. And of course, as spiritual beings, we are coming from the spiritual reality. So it helps us to understand, to not just to recognize what's going on around us as being this is of the world or this is of the spirit, but also to live our own lives out of spirit. So
I see. So now we're getting to the thick of things. So how do we keep ourselves into the spiritual side so that we can stay in that frame of mind or in that state of heart? How do we keep our heart space there so that we don't have to, battle between the two choices, I guess?
I think the main thing is by recognizing this paradigm that differentiates between the world and the spirit. Then we have this concept of the watcher, which is this, it's like the angel that's sitting on your shoulder there, kind of watching what's going on. So as you understand this paradigm and you start observing yourself and observing your thoughts and your actions with this with the understanding of, is this living out of love, grace, and trust, then you begin to see where you're not behaving out of love, grace, and trust. And you also begin to think of ways, okay, in this particular situation, what would have been the loving thing to do? What would have been acting out of grace and trust, as opposed to using the worldly rules. And through that, you can kind of start modifying your behavior over time, begin to live more out of the truth of your own spirit.
Very cool. And what I like about, or should I say love about your book, Paul, is that you actually give a good detailed explanation there where you can put it all together. So it's not like you have to we're just talking in kind of bits and pieces here, but when you go through the book, you can put it all together really easily, what the paradigms are and how to make those shifts. So I think you did a really great job in spreading, and relating that out. It's very clear cut. It's not hard to understand. It's very, very simple to understand. So I commend you on that. Because when I read through it, I say, boy, he's really spelled it out so clearly here. So by me having had read the book, I know exactly what you're talking about, and it's a very easy read. So when we look at things, because sometimes people kind of, like you said, that angel on your shoulder, and then the other side, you got this other kind of things you're looking at life. So people like to sometimes see things as right and wrong, good and bad, just like up and down, east or west. So how do you address things like that?
Well, I have a concept that everything in life is good. And so the challenge is that we tend to see the world through the eyes of, I like this or I don't like this. And we tend to label things that we don't like as being bad, or things that we don't believe in as being bad. What I've come to understand is that every experience in life is a blessing. Everything that happens in life, there's always something good that comes from it. And so if you begin to understand this, then when you are confronted with something that you're not enjoying at the moment,
right.
then you can, it really kind of changes your way of thinking about the experiences that you have in your life. In other words, if you understand that everything is a blessing, I mean, if you really at a gut level understand that everything is a blessing, then you begin to perceive your experiences in a different way. Now, that's not to say that every experience is going to be something you enjoy.
Wow.
But instead of thinking in the midst of a painful experience, instead of thinking, oh, how bad this is, oh, I hate this, oh, all of these negative thoughts related to the current circumstances, instead of that, your mind turns towards, I'm really not enjoying this much right now, but I wonder what is the blessing that's going to come out of this.
Awesome. And it's good you say that. I'm going to jump right in there because I read something this morning and it said something right along the lines of where you are. So we're definitely in sync with this topic, because it says something like, without your struggles, you would never know your strength, right?
Yeah, and that's the thing about it is that if you're spending all of your energy disliking the circumstances that you are, then you miss all of the blessings that come from it. But also, as I say, if just the change in mindset of, oh, I hate this, to I wonder what it is that's, I sure don't see it right now, but I wonder what the blessing is that's going to come out of this. It can take events and situations that are quite painful and turn them and make them much less painful, make them much less unenjoyable. So,
And would you not agree, Paul, that oftentimes if we can get to the level of forgiveness, that will often be the key for things? And I know in your book you go quite into depth about talking about forgiveness, how the rules relate to the topic of forgiveness. I would like to go with that.
okay, well, if you don't mind, let's back up a little bit. One of the things that kind of fell out of the rules paradigm is that the way of the Spirit is, as you might expect, truth. That's not. I mean, that's kind of one of the things that falls out of the way of the Spirit, is that the Spirit acts in truth. It's always the truth. I have a saying that sooner or later, one way or another, the truth will come out. The way of the world, now you might expect, because of some of these other characteristics are tend to be the opposites of the spiritual. The way of the world is not the opposite of truth, but rather a half truth. In other words, there's a little grain of truth to it, but there's also a little grain of not truth to it. And a really good example of that is the concept of forgiveness. So the world says, if you've done something to harm me, then you owe me an apology, and I may or may not forgive you. Now, the way of the Spirit is that the person who is doing the forgiving is the one that gets the benefit of the forgiveness. The person doing the apology is the one that gets the benefit of the apology. In other words, forgiveness really and truly has nothing to do with the person who is being forgiven. Has nothing to do with them. It has everything to do with the person who's doing the forgiving. And it is 100% for the benefit of the person who's doing the forgiving. I think it was Buddha that said refusing to forgive is like taking a poison and expecting the other person to get sick.
Yeah, I've heard that. How true.
I say refusing to forgive is like picking up a red hot poker, and as your hand is sizzling and the steam coming off of it, and you shake that poker at the other person. So, as you pick up this red hot iron and shake it at the other person, does that hurt the other person?
No, you only get burned.
It only hurts yourself, and the sooner you throw that hot poker down, the less injury you're going to cause to yourself, and the sooner you can begin to heal. Now, the other part of that is an example that I use in this is
So let's get on that just a little bit, Paul. I don't let anybody scathe through anything. So when you are forgiving, that's for your own healing for you.
It's for your own
For
healing.
your own healing for you, which is a very important concept. So let's say it again. When you're forgiving, that healing is for you.
The only time it has an effect on the other person is when the other person, and by the way, I should back up and say, forgiving can apply to another person. It can apply to yourself. It can apply to a circumstance or an event. In other words, there may not be someone, there may not be another person or living thing that's on the other end of that forgiveness. But the only time that the other entity has any interaction in the forgiveness is when they value the relationship with you. So the only time somebody's going to care whether you forgive them or not is when they love you.
Yeah.
And I always say returning hurt for hurt there's nothing spiritual about returning hurt for hurt. So if someone's done something that hurt you, and that person has investment in the relationship with you, and they care about that relationship, for you to then, withhold forgiveness from them like you're, with holding something over their head, that's just turning hurt for hurt, and there's nothing spiritual about that.
Awesome. Well, Paul, I could just listen to you all day because you're just a world-renowned, phenomenal speaker about all this stuff, and it's just good, and getting it's really going good. But as our time is winding down, I do want to be sure that I highlight something because you're on a very special trip right now, and I want you to tell us just a little bit about what you're doing because you took time out of your schedule to talk to us about your new book, and I do want you to share on a personal level what you're doing right now.
You mean in terms of the trip to Burlington?
Yeah, you're in Burlington right now with Jesse. Tell us about that.
We're in Burlington, Vermont. We have come to the senior project showcase for my son Jesse, who is about to graduate from Champlain College in Burlington, Vermont, with a degree in computer game programming. So we're excited to be here. Burlington is a beautiful town.
So he's there to showcase his projects, his works.
Yeah, he has been working with a team of other programmers and game designers and so forth. They actually put the students together into teams within 2 weeks of the first day that they get into college. So he's been working with various teams over the last 4 years, and he's been working with teams his senior year, which have kind of consolidated down into a few larger teams. And they are presenting their work this evening.
Yes.
And of course, the game programming companies are here to see what's going on, and this is kind of a big recruiting event as well. So we're excited, and
we're all excited too, Paul.
Hopeful that this is a good launch for his career.
This is a great launch, and everybody's just so proud. And I just wanted to take a minute to highlight that because it's not every day that people have these great, fantastic things going on. And so it doesn't take much to just share that so that we can all embellish in the greatness that someone has experienced. And so just wishing him a world of good with that because he's such a great guy. So, Paul, as we wind things down and this program has come to an end, I do want you to take this opportunity and let people know where they can get a copy of your book, Rules of the Spirit, and also let them know how we can hook into you for further information and more expansion.
Okay. The book is available on the website rulesofthespirit.com. That's all one word, Rules of the Spirit. You can also find it on Amazon if you search for Paul C. McKinley. Got to put that middle initial in there. But it is a little cheaper on the website if you order it from there. And of course, like the Facebook page for the book, it's facebook.com/Rules of the Spirit, all one word. And watch for webinars hopefully coming up soon. And of course, I post insights on the website, usually on about a weekly basis that, you're sure to find uplifting. And then, of course, I'm available as a speaker for churches or other organizations that could use a talk, especially based on the topic of forgiveness, since that seems to be so powerful for many people these days.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Paul, for that. It's just been really great. I have enjoyed you thoroughly. And so on that note, I just want to say that I do love you dearly for putting people into the rich flow of life with Rules of the Spirit.
Thank you so much, Valerie.
Okay. Goodbye.
Goodbye.
You have been listening to the Rich Flow of Life podcast with host Valerie Kanay. We're most appreciative you took the time to be with us. And thank you. For more action, go subscribe to Valerie Kanay Talks YouTube channel and like us on Facebook at Valerie Kanay Talks and follow us on Twitter at Valerie Kanay. Until next time, we love ya.